Does Vanessa truly believe she has found real love? Deanna believes her mother is walking straight into the most dangerous trap of her life, and Joey? Only one person knows what he truly wants, and by the time the truth comes out, it may already be too late. Not every late-in-life romance is a reward. Some relationships arrive precisely when a person has been worn down by loneliness, by judgment, by having to live too long inside a role imposed by other people. And because they arrive at that exact moment, they become more dangerous than ever. Vanessa is standing on that border now. After years of a cold marriage with Doug, after too many days spent in a house filled with comfort but empty of warmth, she no longer wants to remain a woman who only endures, only protects appearances, only smiles through a life that has been quietly cracking from within. Joey's arrival feels like a sudden door opening inside a suffocating room, making Vanessa believe that at last she has the right to be loved, to feel desire, to be seen as a woman rather than a shadow left behind by her former marriage. That is why she clings to Joey not only with emotion, but with the wounded pride she has carried for years. She does not simply love him, she loves the feeling of being alive when she is with him. And that is why every warning has begun to sound meaningless in her ears. But Deanna does not see this through the eyes of a woman exhausted by a lack of love. She sees Joey through the defensive instinct of a daughter who has watched her family fall apart piece by piece. In Deanna's eyes, Joey is not a miracle that came late. He is the kind of man who becomes more suspicious the more polished he seems, more dangerous the calmer he appears, more unsettling the more perfect he looks. Like someone who knows exactly which mask to wear in order to make others lower their guard. What unsettles Deanna is not only that Joey entered Vanessa's life too quickly, but how quickly Vanessa is willing to place her trust in him. When a woman begins to trust a man more than the daughter who has always stood by her side, this is no longer just a love story. It becomes a shift of power inside the family. Vanessa is not only in love anymore. She is restructuring her life around Joey, and in doing so, she is unintentionally pushing Deanna from the position of her closest person into the role of the most irritating opponent. The rumor of a secret wedding does not merely heighten the tension, it exposes the true nature of this conflict. On the surface, it looks like a clash between a mother who wants to grasp happiness and a daughter who refuses to let go of the past. But on a deeper level, the real conflict lies in the fact that both women believe they are trying to save Vanessa. They just define salvation differently. Vanessa believes salvation means daring to move forward, daring to let go of the fear of being judged, daring to choose a new man even if the whole world frowns upon it. Deanna believes salvation means keeping her mother away from a mistake wrapped in romance. One acts from emotional hunger that has been suppressed for too long. The other acts from fear of loss and suspicion strength and by memory. That is why they cannot persuade each other. They can only wound each other more deeply. When Deanna decides to investigate Joey herself, the story moves into a far more dangerous layer. She is no longer resisting with emotion alone. She begins to use logic, evidence, and observation to fight against a man she believes is hiding something. This is a very believable direction for the story, because in situations where instinct carries little weight, people often cling to the search for truth as a way to regain control. Deanna quietly follows the empty spaces in Joey's past, the vague connections, the details in his story that do not quite line up. The way he responds too quickly and too smoothly whenever personal questions arise. The more she searches, the more clearly she sees one frightening thing. Joey is not the kind of man who easily leaves cracks behind. That does not reassure her. On the contrary, it makes her suspicion even heavier. A man who can control his image too well is often a man who has prepared very carefully to be watched. Then comes the shock of Vanessa possibly being pregnant, slicing away every last bit of distance left between them. In a single moment, the arguments about love, trust, and gossip suddenly become a story about a new life. Every choice becomes harsher, more difficult, and no one can pretend anymore that this is merely an experimental relationship. If Vanessa is truly pregnant, that child will become the center of the entire psychological battle. For Vanessa, it could mean proof that life has not turned its back on her, that her love with Joey is not a reckless late impulse but a genuine chance to begin again. For Joey, the child could be a promise or a test. A man who loves sincerely would embrace that life as both responsibility and joy. But a man who entered the relationship with calculation would see it as a variable that must be controlled. And that is where the question of Joey's true nature becomes sharper than ever. Will he rejoice because Vanessa is pregnant? Or will he quietly calculate what that news means for his position in her life? Deanna cannot respond to this news by simply holding on to her old position. If she continues opposing Joey, she will look like a cruel daughter causing stress to her mother at a sensitive time. But if she steps back, she may allow Vanessa to slide deeper into a relationship she believes is a mistake. This is what makes the storyline so compelling, because it forces Deanna to confront the darker side of her own protective love. There are moments when love, if expressed too harshly, begins to look like possession. There are warnings that lose their force when spoken in anger, even if they are fundamentally right. Deanna begins to understand that she is not only fighting Joey, she is also fighting the way she expresses fear. The more furious she becomes, the more Vanessa feels judged. The more relentless she becomes, the more Joey gets to play the patient, understanding, trustworthy man. In a bitter irony, Deanna's resistance may actually be helping Joey appear more innocent in Vanessa's eyes. Vanessa, meanwhile, is not as naive as people may think, but she is blind in a different way. She knows there are risks. She simply no longer wants to live by cold logic. This is worth examining carefully because many people confuse foolishness with emotional desperation. Vanessa does see the signs of instability. She simply chooses to believe that this time she deserves to take the risk. After a lifetime of being judged, shaped, and forced into the standards of a wife, a mother, a well-behaved woman, she wants one decision that belongs entirely to her, even if that decision could be wrong. It is this desperate hunger to reclaim her autonomy that makes her react so fiercely to Deanna. In Vanessa's mind, every attempt to stop her gradually stops feeling like love and begins to feel like control. She feels that her daughter is not only doubting Joey, but also quietly denying her own mother's ability to judge for herself. That is something Vanessa cannot bear, especially now that she has only just regained the feeling that she still has the right to choose. Joey, at the center of the storm, becomes even more unsettling because he does not need to do very much. A truly dangerous man is not the one who constantly explodes, but the one who understands the value of restraint. The more Deanna attacks him, the calmer Joey appears. The more he is questioned, the more understanding he becomes. On the surface, that could be a sign of strength. But seen another way, it could also be strategy. Because in family conflicts, the person who wins is often not the one who is right first, but the one who manages to keep a favorable image for the longest. If Joey is truly hiding something, then he understands perfectly well that as long as he stays calm, Deanna will gradually turn herself into the unreasonable one. And when a daughter gets swept away by emotion while a man continues to present himself as polished and composed, society often takes the side of whoever appears more courteous. That familiar unfairness is exactly what makes this storyline feel so disturbingly real. From here, the secret Deanna is tracing may not only involve Joey's past. It may touch something even darker, the possibility that Joey did not approach Vanessa purely out of love, but because he saw in her a woman emptied by loneliness, rich in emotion, rich in wounds, and therefore easy to influence. This would be a logical and powerful way to push the story toward its climax without breaking its realism. Joey does not need to be an obvious villain. He only needs to be someone who is far too skilled at arriving exactly when someone else is most vulnerable. His secret may not be a simple crime, but an entire history of relationships built on control, of lives he entered and quietly began to shape from within. If Deanna reaches that truth before the wedding, she may hold the one thing that can save her mother. But if the truth emerges only after Vanessa has married him, after she is pregnant, after she has placed all of her faith in Joey, then the tragedy will cut much deeper. Because at that point, no one truly wins. That is why the climax of this story should not rest only on whether Vanessa chooses one side or the other, but on the fact that every choice carries a cost. If Vanessa chooses her heart, she may preserve the feeling that she is finally living honestly for herself, but she may also hand her life over to a man who has never been fully transparent. If she chooses to trust Deanna, she will have to accept that the happiness she has struggled to reach may have been nothing more than an illusion. And that realization would crush the fragile self-respect she has only just rebuilt. If Deanna keeps digging, she may save her mother, but she may also destroy their relationship completely if all she finds are suspicions that never become solid enough. And Joey, if he is sincere, will have to prove it with truth rather than charm. If not, the pressure from Deanna will crack that perfect mask sooner or later. In the end, this is no longer a simple story about a mysterious man entering the life of a lonely widow. It is a story about how loneliness can make a person gamble everything on the feeling of being loved, about how pain within a family can turn protection into injury, and about how the truth always arrives later than decisions made in the desperate hunger for happiness. Vanessa may believe Joey is the last chance of her life. Deanna may believe she is the only one clear-eyed enough to stop a disaster. But in tragedies like this, the most painful truth is often that both of them are partly right. And because each of them has a reason to cling desperately to her own belief, they are all the more likely to push each other toward a point of no return. If there is one thing that makes this story truly gripping, it is the sense that the wedding, the baby, and Joey's secret are not three separate plot lines, but three fuses burning toward the same explosion. Once one of them goes off, every remaining illusion will collapse with it. The only real question is whether Vanessa will see the truth before she gives Joey everything, or whether she will understand it only when the price has already become too great for anything to be saved. Will Vanessa really marry Joey? Does Joey truly love Vanessa, or is he after something else? Why is Vanessa willing to risk her entire family to be with Joey? Is Deanna being selfish, or is she the only one who can see the truth?